My guest is Shaka Senghor, whose new bestseller, How to Be Free, is about hidden prisons. Not just for people who've been incarcerated, but the grief, anger, shame, trauma, self-doubt that we all carry. Shaka spent 19 years in prison, including 7.5 in solitary confinement. And then after his second parole denial, he chose hope over despair and discovered practices that have transformed his life. And he shares them here. Welcome to People in Common. I'm Jama Adams. This is a podcast where we talk to leaders about connecting their personal stories to what's happening in this moment. What are we supposed to do? How do we translate values into action? How can we be people in common? Shaka Senghor, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So excited. So excited. I have to start with, grateful for our mutual friend, Margaret, who thinks very highly of you. And she told me all about your book, went out and grabbed it. So, I've told the people a little bit about you, but I wanted to start with, your new book, How to Be Free. And I wanted to start with, what was the reason for writing this book, and what are the hidden prisons that we should really get into and fix up?
Yeah, that's a great question. The motivation for writing How to Be Free really stemmed from my experience as a writer with my other bodies of work, where I wrote two different books. One is Righting My Wrong, which is a memoir about my journey from the streets of Detroit to incarceration, where I spent 19 years. 7 of those years were in solitary confinement. To my follow-up book, which was Letters to the Sons of Society. And what happened is, during my writer's journey, I would go and do these talks, and people would really come up and share just all type of stuff about their own lives.
I bet. You're opening the floodgates, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about shame and guilt and, all of it. Oof.
Yeah, and it was so mind-blowing to see people so candidly opening up about things they said that they hadn't talked about before. Suicidal ideation, divorces, children navigating addiction, you name it. And what it told me was that, one, people just craved vulnerability. They craved authentic connection.
Which, can we stop there? Because we've built this world that is the literal polar opposite of that, right? Like, we all, social media, we all show, but how is that possible, that we've built this world one way and actually what we're craving is the vulnerability? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of separating our day-to-day lives from the expression of what people think our lives have to be, right? So if you think about the 24-hour news cycle, you think about the ideas around your work life versus how do you actually interact in your day-to-day life, right? There's kind of like the water cooler conversations, and then
how you talk to your kids, how you talk to your neighbors, or
how do you talk to yourself?
Or
that's a real big one.
That's
right?
kind of what this book is all about, right? How do you interrupt the nasty ways that, I think everybody can identify with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause we're the conversations we have with ourselves are always going to be the most important conversations.
Yeah.
And the thing is that oftentimes we don't take those conversations outward. And so you may have this deep desire to connect, and you may even be saying it to inside, like, man, I just wish I had a deeper connection with my friends. But then you won't say to your friends, hey, how do we connect deeper?
Said no one ever. Even to their best friends. Right.
But meanwhile, when it happens, then we're like, oh my God, that was the greatest experience ever. And how do I get more of that? And so a lot of what the book is about is like helping us get to the life that we know on the deepest levels we really deserve to live, the type of connections that we really want to have with ourselves and with others, and how do we, heal from the things that are holding us back. Yeah. And I saw it a lot during the pandemic, where there were so many people reaching out to me. I mean, these were people who highly accomplished, some of the most successful people in their particular field, whether it was entrepreneurship, investing, athletics. And they were like, Shaka, what do I do? I feel so isolated right now.
Mm.
I'm really afraid. I don't know how to, navigate this time. And it was just really
And
interesting.
maybe, sorry to interrupt, maybe especially for those kinds of folks who are used to, who are in the public eye, who are interacting with people and leading people and sort of leading culture and doing, right? Like maybe that's the biggest gap, right? For those of us lowly folks, right? Like going inward was not that it was easy for anybody, but for those of us, for folks who are out there, like it's even more jarring, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think I found it interesting enough. Like, I mean, it was even people who just lived the most pedestrian of lives. They were like, "What do I do with this isolation?"
Yeah.
Because ultimately, isolation is isolation, and whether it's your miniature apartment in New York or whether it's your mansion in California, when you start to drill down into what it means to be human, which is really rooted in
Yes.
connection,
Yeah.
that's when you started to see it just show up in people's lives. And I was like, well, I have some anecdotal things that I learned from navigating like solitary confinement, and that if you employ these tools, you can get through these moments with your humanity intact. And that's
Wow.
ultimately what you want to help people do, is like maintain the integrity of their humanity.
Wow. Wow. And people reached out to you. Do you think of solitary confinement in prison for 7.5 years? Mic drop.
Yeah.
That is, do you also, having experienced that, do you consider that sort of the end of the spectrum? The pandemic was hard, but man, that's not even close to anywhere close on the spectrum to 7.5 years of solitary confinement. Is
Mhm.
that how you think about it too?
I don't really think of I don't really think of solitary confinement in terms of spectrums relative to the
Hmm.
inner isolation that people feel.
Hmm.
Um,
It's not a
because
comparison game.
yeah, and the reality is that you can take a person who's suffering and you can put them in the most socially rich environment imaginable, and if they're isolated in their own mind, it's as damaging as being stuck in a prison cell.
Wow,
And the
that's so
reason I know that
profound.
is that I was incarcerated before I ever was arrested, and I was free long before they let me out of prison. And so, freedom really is an inside job, and suffering,
That's a great quote.
yeah, yeah, it's really
And
is
it's
an
good
inside.
news for
Yeah,
those of us
yeah,
who, are slowly following under a non-free society here. Wow.
yeah,
Say that again. Yeah, keep
yeah,
going.
yeah. I mean, freedom really is an inside job, and so the way that I think of it is more like, where are you at as a person in your
Mm,
own journey?
hmm,
And that inside journey is so powerful
hmm.
that even the most restrictive of environments, you can find liberation if you're liberated in mind and spirit. And so I don't compare, because I think it's just unfair to people. Like not many people will have the expanse of my experience, the extremes of my experience. Even people who are incarcerated don't have the same experience that I have. I went into prison
Hmm.
with some luck. And what I mean by that is that I was actually literate in an environment where
Yeah,
literacy rates hover around third grade.
yeah.
So I was having a different prison experience because I can actually read,
Hmm.
which is,
And you
yeah,
said books saved you. I,
absolutely.
I can't wait to get into that. What do you mean when you say that? What did that difference mean for your prison experience?
So I think a couple of things. When I think about my relationship to literature, it had a multi-layered component to it, right? One, just pure escapism. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
like getting away in a pure book, right?
Ugh, it's almost even
Um,
better than, music or movie. It's like you're automatically in the world. Nothing
yeah,
else
because
matters.
you get a chance to add your own details, right?
That's
So,
right.
I remember reading like Sidney Sheldon's Master of the Game and just going on this wild adventure, and it was like, Stephen King's The Stand, or,
Oh
even
God.
even something as
Yeah.
crazy as like, Jackie Collins' Hollywood Wives. Like those stories were like wild, right? So there was just the pure escapism that,
Yeah.
it added, but then there was like curiosity. I started reading, Malcolm X's autobiography just opened my mind to like, the endless possibilities, from intellectual curiosity.
Hmm.
And, that led to me reading philosophy, and it led to me reading, historical literature, and, all these things. And then I got into like, these philosophical books. And so those things allow me to challenge my mind in a way that the environment wasn't necessarily challenging me, because
Yeah.
now I can sit with ideas and I can ponder, what the Stoics were talking about, or the Sophists,
Hmm.
or, you name it. I was able to explore those worlds and examine them in a way that, prior to reading a lot of diverse things, you know, no one could ever told me that reading philosophy was cool. And then I discovered, I was like, oh, like this language is really interesting, and it really has this real world application. And so that's what I mean by saving my life. One, it gave me the ability to escape whenever I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it enhanced my curiosity about the world. And then it challenged me intellectually to kind of evolve the way that I thought about my life and the life of others.
Yeah. Yeah. And brought you on that journey. I mean, I think I thought a lot. You talk about autobiographies and how specifically, that those are among your favorites because, and I'm with you 100%. I brought Maya Angelou's Heart of a Woman, which is
Mhm.
my all-time favorite. Um, for you, what about the autobiography? Because it sounds like you kind of, if you will, that's where you started, or that's really drew you in, which of course, right? Like you're in that person's, perspective. What what else about that really kind of grabbed you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, autobiographies allow you to ground yourself in the essence of what it means to be human. You
Hmm.
can really put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Hmm.
And,
Empathy, like
yeah,
actual living their
empathy.
experience.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and then you start to realize that we're more alike than we are different. You get a chance to this full range of emotions that comes with the telling of one story, right? And
Yeah.
not all autobiographies are created equal.
Sure.
Some of them are well told. I mean, you're talking about Maya. She's one of the
Right. I
greatest
mean,
writers in history. So
correct.
her turn of a phrase, right? Like she can make,
Oh,
she can make
she
getting
can
up
make
and
anything.
making toast sound like
And
the
does.
most, yeah.
That empathy and that shared, I mean, this is what you talk about with hidden prisons, that commonality. I mean, that's why people in common exist at all, right? Because it's not about what, othering and making sure, like keeping us in our boxes. Like if we're going to do this thing, we gotta, we gotta figure out what bonds us, what we have in common, how we can talk about the things that really matter.
Absolutely. And I think that's the magic of what it means to be human, is when you can lean into
Hmm.
someone else's experience. And I
Hmm.
think I got that the most from reading autobiographies and memoirs, and like,
Hmm.
people navigating really, really tough things. And it's one of those kind of, things. One, as a writer, I just have a deep appreciation for the telling of one
Because you had
story,
to
what
do
it
it. Yeah.
takes. Yeah, what it takes to go into
Applause.
those not so pleasant spaces. And so I'm always thankful when I think about those who bore the cross for us. I
Mm,
mean, some of the books, you think about the stories where women are
mm.
writing about the attacks on their body, the attacks on, their mental. You think about the books where, excuse me, you think about the books where we're navigating race and the complexity of it, and people are talking about how devastating it is to be othered and to be shrunken down to some ignorant idea. And, it's powerful when somebody lays that bare on a page. And,
Yeah.
I always had this fanciful idea that one day we will hold our writers um up the way that we hold up our athletes or our entertainers. And,
Mm.
and
Yes,
and and
please.
and maybe one day somebody will read a passage at the Super Bowl and inspire people to actually read more.
There we go. We have a
But
poet laureate, right? Who is
yeah,
pretty active these days and writing about Minneapolis for Alex Preddy. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
you're absolutely, and back to Maya, obviously she was one of the best poet laureates,
yeah.
but you're right. I mean, how did the talk back to the vulnerability? We right now, our culture does not reward vulnerability. Our culture rewards invincibility, the idea of invincibility. And I think great writers, the greats are the ones, as you have done, to lay it all bare and really investigate it and turn it around and look at it from all the different perspectives and then be really brutally honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is that we don't deal in nuance enough, right? It's like
That's
we
so
want
true.
we either want people to be extremely vulnerable or
Hmm.
extremely
Oh, good
stoic,
point.
right?
Good point. Yep.
And
Falling
it's like
apart
yeah,
or
and it's
yeah.
like how do we find that balance, right? Like,
Hmm.
I get tons of I have tons of conversations with women and they're like, "Oh my God, like, what do you think about toxic masculinity?" I'm like, "Well, that's a very broad, you know, a title that we've kind of laid onto male
Hmm.
experience, right? And like, there's things like I can be gentle and kind, but also like to see people get kicked in the face watching UFC. I like to watch, you know, football, and I know that some people are going to end up with CTE, and it doesn't take away like my desire to see people run as fast as they can and tackle each other. So, and simultaneously, I also love to snuggle with my wife and my son. And so there's that duality
Hmm.
that we don't compensate for. And as a writer, what I try to do is just say, listen, this is all of me. Like you may not, it's parts of me that you probably shouldn't like. It's fine.
Hmm.
It's parts of you I may not like, which is fine as well. And like we don't
Yeah.
have to have this agreeable way of like the only way that I can embrace you is if I love all of you. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's
Uh-huh.
certain parts of
As
our
if,
culture that
yeah, as
just
if that's
not
even a thing.
resonate. Yeah, and I think we can make space for curiosity.
Yeah.
We can make space for respect. Like I can respect
Oh,
things that I don't necessarily like or that
yes.
I'm not interested in, right? For
Yeah.
example, this past so interesting the past Super Bowl is like all this dust up about Bad Bunny being the performer, and it's almost like you have to either hate the idea and then be considered a racist, or you have to be love the idea and be considered a romanticist. And the truth is, me personally, I just don't like the music. Like I'm like, I love hip hop, so I'm always like, what hip hop act is performing, right? It doesn't mean that I don't like Bad Bunny. I don't know him, but I
Yeah.
should be able to say that look, I was not interested in that halftime show for any other reason other than I just don't actually like the music. And like now we live in this culture where it's like we politicize everything. We make meaning out of people's choices that have nothing to do with the person choosing. We don't listen to understand. We listen to
Or at all.
demonize. Yeah, and so
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
think if we can't even get the basics of like
Yeah.
cultural things right. I mean, I argue with my friends all the time about music taste, what they like, what I dislike, and it never comes down to like, oh, you're a racist or you're whatever other ways that we label people. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, your
Yeah.
music, your taste in music sucks and mine doesn't. Like that's
Which
and
which
like
is, that's a
yeah,
reasonable opinion to
yeah,
hold.
and that's all it is. It's just like our opinions, right? But now somehow
Yeah. We treat them
our
with
opinions
such
have become so politicized that we're not even honest with ourselves
yeah.
publicly. And
Yeah.
I refuse to
Yeah.
live in that prison.
Yeah. Oh,
And
there you
and
go.
so I don't even talk to people that I don't feel like I can have a genuine conversation with, and like
And
that's
what is that line? Is it respect? Like what it kind of like when does somebody come outside the bounds of I'm not this is not worth my time?
I think when I can sense that it's performative.
Mm,
If you're performing some act of like who you think you have to be,
hmm.
like that conversation isn't interesting to me.
Yeah, it's not going to be.
I would
Yeah.
rather us be completely disagreeable and authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation,
Yeah.
because I want to understand why you think the way that you think. And, maybe just through our conversation, we can shift each other's perspective. I've had my perspective shift a lot,
Mm,
because, I'm a male navigating a very male driven society. So being in conversation with, my friends who are women, my perspective is always shifting because I'm curious.
hmm.
It doesn't mean we always agree, but there's so many things about my life that is better because I've been curious about what is her experience, what is something that happens in her world that she doesn't, have
That
to
would
think
never come
twice
into
about because
mine.
it's her world. But now I
Yeah.
can consider that like, oh, shit, I never thought about that,
Hmm. Right. I've
Um,
never faced that. And it's
and
kind of,
so I think that's how we get better as like humans, is like how do we become more curious?
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I mean, you are someone who has pretty recently sat down with Oprah
Mhm.
and Joe Rogan, and I bet a bunch of other people. What is talk about everything? I mean, I think a few, we give a lot of respect to a 0 or a 1 or a black or a white opinion,
Mhm.
and not a lot of respect. I mean, I think that's a great point. Not a lot of respect to the human,
Mhm.
right? We're listening just as long as we need to understand if you're on my side or not, right? Or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
Ha- I guess so. Talk about those specifics, but also talk about, because that's something I was dying to talk to you about. How did we get here? If we're talking about this cultural moment, there is so much division. The sort of worst aspects of this are being played out on a national stage, on an international stage every day. So talk about your personal experience and then what you think, how do you extrapolate these lessons that you're trying to get at in the book to our shared experience right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about that. People ask me that all the time. It was like, that seems like such an extreme, right? To go from Joe to Oprah, Oprah to Joe. And, Oprah and I, we've become friends over the years, which has been
Jealous,
just
super
so
jealous. Yep.
it's been such
Okay.
a magical relationship because the thing that makes Oprah Oprah is that she is authentically herself.
Yeah.
And she lives in that spirit in the deepest, most beautiful, even sweet way. There's a sweetness to like,
Mm,
the way that she explores life. And like, I mean, originally when she first got my book, she was like, she had judgments. And
mm.
she's been super honest about that. And I think
Which
that's
she shared with you
powerful.
yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
awesome.
And like that, I mean, if you really think about that, here's the most powerful woman in the world. When it comes to the world of media, like there's
Yeah.
no one bigger
No
than Oprah,
equal.
right? And
Correct.
she
Yeah.
gets this book and she's like, why? Why would I read this guy's book when he was in prison? He was a convicted murderer, and nobody can make her read that book. Her spiritual curiosity, the intention behind her valuing books, wouldn't allow her to
Mm.
throw that book away.
Hmm.
And
Lucky
then
you.
she decides to open it and she comes into a world that she's never come into, right?
Mm.
And I'm sure there were moments, plenty of moments. I mean, like she read the self-published one, which is
Yeah.
way more
Would
raw
you
than
Right, which you sold out of your trunk, right? Is this
yeah,
the one
yeah.
this was you were right
She
out
got the
of that
raw
you wrote in
ones.
prison?
Yeah,
Wow.
she got the raw one, and there are stories in that one that's not in the other book. And but she explored it with curiosity,
Hmm.
and like I mean, what better lesson for life than that,
Hmm.
right? This
Hmm.
extreme of like this beautiful, powerful woman who revels in good, revels in
Hmm.
nice and happiness and things. And now she's in this world that's the complete opposite of that, right? And
Hmm.
I didn't pull any punches when I'm writing about where I was in that world.
Yeah.
But she approached me with a sensitivity of spirit that led to us becoming friends, right? And then you have Joe, who everybody has an opinion about. Is he fostering whatever angst they have or angst they have? And I go into this conversation, I go in there with the purity of spirit of like, we're just about to have a good conversation.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to, only way it's not going to be good is if he prevent me from telling the truth. And he didn't do that. He was curious. And we were
Yeah.
able to laugh and like,
Yeah.
so that masculine part of me was able to just be free of like, I can just say the thing and like, I don't have to be sensitive to Joel's ears. Like he's seen some things. And it was just a real conversation. And the power of that is that I don't know Joe's politics. I don't know Oprah's politics. I can glean some things from what they say, but I also don't
Yeah.
really care that much about politics. I care about what it means to be human because
Yeah.
we existed before politics existed. And if we can go back to that fundamental principle of like, hey, we actually created these systems.
Yes.
And a lot of these parts of these systems are not real. The media
Hmm.
stokes fear. You know why it stokes fear? Because we love scaring the hell out of
Eyeballs.
ourselves.
That's right. And that,
Like,
and very clearly, like that's,
absolutely, it's a
yeah.
marketing. I mean, it's the greatest marketing play, right? Like we're the
Yeah.
people who watch Jason, Saw, Halloween. So we're like these gluttons for scaring the hell out
I'm
of
not, but
ourselves.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, my
I'm,
either, right?
yes.
But I'm just saying, like those things,
Yeah.
like are mass marketed. Like Stephen King
Yes.
is like one of the
For
best-selling
sure.
authors in the history of literature for a
Forever
reason,
and
right?
ever. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
part of our innate human experience where we like to be proximate to things that we're
Mm.
afraid of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what does the media do? It feeds us with exactly what it psychologically knows about us.
Yeah.
Is that if we can make people fearful, they will lean in because they're trying to absolve themselves of the fear. And so here we go,
But
make
wait,
ourselves
so
there. Yeah.
inoculate, like exposure therapy, like that, is that you think that's why people like this stuff?
Yes, it's the craziness of like
Huh.
the new, like we will watch the same bit of news all day, every day for a week straight. It'd be the same story. It doesn't change much.
Yeah.
Like
Humans
if you
trying to
miss the
do
news on
things.
Monday, you can catch up by Thursday and you'll have all the detail that you missed
Oh,
on
for
Monday
sure.
because
For
it's going to
sure.
feed us because we're going to keep feeding ourselves that. And it's so wild because like, I'll go into space I'm speaking and people are like, oh my God, the world just feel like it's coming apart. And I'm like, it doesn't feel like that to me. I'm actually amazed. I'm happy to be here. How's your day going? Right? Like we're about to have fun. We're about to talk. We're about to have meaningful conversations.
Huh.
That is my real life. That's more what my life is in day to day as it is with most people. Is like
Huh.
our day to day life oftentimes doesn't even brush up against the insanity that we're like so caught up in, right? Now, does these
Yeah.
things impact our lives? Absolutely. The way we get taxed, the potential to go into war, our environment is falling apart.
Yeah.
Those things are true, but it's also true that we are more humane in our day to day interactions than the
Hmm.
news media would lead us to believe. So we're partially responsible, right? It's not just a
Oh,
politician.
for sure.
You
Yeah. Oh,
know,
gosh. Yeah.
we keep
Yeah.
entertaining the craziness. And like, I mean, I literally was in Iowa, right? The population of this town was like, I think less than 2% black.
Sure. It's
And
Iowa.
I
I
flew
lived in
out
Des Moines.
there,
Yeah.
and not only did I fly out there, when I landed, I was like, it was an hour drive to the hotel. And so, you know, I could have been like, man, I'm not flying out there in the middle of Iowa. Who are these people? But I was like, oh, I'm actually going. And I had the loveliest time and met the most loving people and the caring people.
Hmm.
And like, that's genuinely
Yeah.
what I found life to be, even in moments of being disagreeable, because people think they know what I think about politics, but most of the time they really don't. I think when you're
What do you
black,
think?
you're just assigned a category that people just think that if you're black and you care about any social issues,
At
people
all.
make
Or people, just
they just
generally.
make
Yeah.
snap judgments on who they think you
Yeah.
are or what they
Yeah.
think you care about.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't care about most of the things people would think. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so fascinating. There's a few threads in there that I really want to pull on. So one is One is, so just caveat, you were talking to somebody, or I should say full disclosure, like you're talking to somebody who, grew up talking about politics. It's part of my, deeply part of my history.
Right.
But I want to ask you because politics, so I think we can mean a lot of different things, but to me, politics is just how we decide what we're going to do together.
Yep.
And I would argue that that has always been part of anytime you get two or more humans in a room, in any group, you're going to have politics, like you have to decide what powers am I going to give up so that we can be safe, just the very basics. What do you think about that? I mean, I know, I know what you were talking about, and saying, when we think of politics now, we think of just two sides screaming at each other on TV, which,
Right.
Nobody loves. But does that ring true, especially given all of the history and the philosophy that you've studied and been part of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're always negotiating and deciding, right? And we're deciding
Yeah.
what's best for the majority, and we're figuring out how to negotiate things. So yeah, you're right. When I speak of politics, I'm speaking about the political conversation that is currently
Mm.
being had on a more national level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This never ending news cycle that gets
Yes.
us all foaming at the mouth and deciding where we land on one thing or another. And the reality is, most of the time, it is very nuanced.
Yeah.
The areas
Anything that
where,
matters
yeah, I
is.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
and like the areas where I have really leaned in, like I worked in criminal justice for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've helped change
Mm-hmm.
a lot of laws and policy, and I've been able to work with both parties.
Thank you.
And,
Yeah.
what I found with both parties is like once you get into the real conversations, the humanity starts to show up. I cannot tell you how many towns that I've gone into that I can pretty much, without, I would probably be a winning man if it was Vegas. I can guarantee you, I can tell you whether I'm in a red town or a blue town.
Cool.
And when you start getting into these deeper layers of, how do we save some of these kids who are dying from opioids and fentanyl?
Yeah.
How do we
Yeah.
make sure that, our taxes are being allocated in a way that matters? And how are we making sure people are, really being taken care of in our community? Those conversations, without a doubt, are always the same. We really want the same
Mm.
thing. We just
I
don't know
couldn't
how to
agree
get
more.
there.
And
Um,
and we're being distracted by people who do have an interest, whether money or political power or
yeah,
influence or, celebrity, people who have a very vested interest in us being divided and at each other's throats and glomming onto the feud. There are differences, no question, but I couldn't agree more on any issue that matters. We all basically want the same things, especially
yeah,
when it comes to our kids. And
yeah.
by our, I mean
And if,
all of our
and
kids.
if we're collectively honest, you can
Hmm.
literally look at both parties and you'll see a very consistent playbook. You
Hmm.
see that they
Yeah.
run for their position, they put their stake in the ground, and when they're done in that space, they write a book and then they go talk about it.
I mean, rich words though, my friend.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, I'm not mad at them, but I'm just saying
it's worked. Yeah.
there's a real
No,
playbook
I
there,
got you.
right? And if you
That's
understand
right.
the playbook, you understand
That's
that
right.
there's a methodology that is always at work. And you have to
That's right.
decipher between like what part is the gamesmanship of
Yeah.
politics versus what part is really about the best interest of the people.
That's
And
right.
and
And
I
the
know,
game
like,
is
I just
designed.
know from doing this work that both parties do have things about their core values that is really designed with the intention to be in the best interest of the people.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, what they say about it and how we get there, that's always a problem. But I never forget that working on criminal justice, the right had a very, particular perspective, which was, hey, we're spending way too much money incarcerating people, and we're leaving a lot on the table when it comes to the labor force that these people could be filling some of these jobs, et cetera. And the left had a very particular perspective of like, listen, we want less harms done to our community, and we have to figure out how to protect people as they reintegrate into society. You get
Mm.
down to it, it's all, how we got there is it differs, right? Because conversations change, time changes things, and so it's just a matter of like how do you balance your day to day experience with,
Mm.
and how do you just protect yourself? Because like I think it's wild to give up so much of our spiritual and emotional agency
Hmm.
to people who we may or may not ever see in our lives.
Hmm.
Um, and so
You
it's just
mean
like
I'm
kind
going
of
to just to follow blindly some political leader, for example?
yeah, or to just work
Yeah.
myself up because somebody disagrees with me. Like
Oh,
that
to
part
right.
is like, I mean, we're like foaming at the mouth over these things, and they're meanwhile
So true.
they're probably all drinking at a bar together and
Laughing all the way to the bank.
yeah,
Yeah.
and figuring
Yeah.
out how they're going to argue a thing together, or against each other. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's definitely it's. I would say for me, the thing that I'm disheartened by is that we don't have a public space for just real intellectual discourse.
Oh, yeah.
We just
Yes.
get into these emotional fights and
Yes.
name
Over and the
calling,
same
and
thing.
yes,
Yes.
we're like little kids on a playground. And I'm like,
I
how much
expect
more
more.
amazing would it be if we
Yes.
can like intellectually debate things
Yeah.
that we care about,
Right.
like in a real intellectual debate,
Right.
without all
Because
the
this
name
stuff
calling and
matters. There
yeah,
are real consequences, right? I mean,
yeah,
and I think I firmly believe, I agree with you. Everybody is the hero of their own story, but also the hero of those around it. Like anybody, especially anybody who's involved in public service, they didn't get there because they wanted to be the Grinch. They got there because they believe that what they are doing is going to make the world better for our kids, right? Like that's how everybody is approaching this. This stuff is hard. I mean, this is my big lesson from the philosophers, and I mean all of them. It's hard. Humans are complicated. Why are we here? I'm not sure yet. Right? So, of course, it's going to be hard to make the right choice, whatever that means. And so, why wouldn't we be curious and have a real debate about it? I think what part of what you're saying is the answer is because we're in our hidden prisons. And if everybody's stuck, this is where the individual becomes the collective, right? I'd love to hear you talk about, you know, obviously the message of this book is, and it's a very practical guide, get free.
yeah.
And then I think what you're saying is, and free others. And that looks like having real debates, and that looks like treating each other with respect and kindness, and right? I mean, does
Yeah.
that ring true?
Yeah, and that's the power of it. Is like the real power is that we get this opportunity to really lean into what it means to be human and the complexities of our humanity. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting because like children, and I'm a dad, so I love being a dad. I have cute little adorable neighbors. I got like some little cute 3-year-old twin neighbors, and they have an older brother who's like 6.
Ugh.
Julius, Emery, and Kai. These like my little guys.
Oh,
And children are adorable, but
yeah.
children are also mean and selfish and violent. Like I'm like, and I
They
think,
have no prefrontal cortex,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
yes.
and I think because we have this kind of like, we have this very romanticized, cuddly idea of children. Even in those moments
Mm.
when they're being selfish, violent, and mean, we find it funny. But the reality is
Oh.
that same energy plays out in adult bodies. And you
Especially
see
because they've been
adults
rewarded
being,
for it.
yeah, you
Yeah,
see
if we're like,
adults
oh, that's
being,
so cute.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
And so then you see it playing out with adults who are like
Ugh.
arguing and all these dust ups. And it's like, oh, that's just the inner child is like not matured to the point where they're causing
Oh.
harm to each other. And that selfishness kicks in, and it's rooted in
Huh.
this fear, right? That if I don't fight for what I want for myself, someone else is going to take it away, and they'll have it
Zero
for
sum.
themselves. Yeah, and
Yes.
it's like, no, we all got to navigate this space together.
That's so interesting. And would you go as far to say that if you don't do your inner work, if you don't heal, if you don't come out of your hidden prisons, your shames, your trauma, your grief, your anger, if you don't work through that, you can't, like, that inner, all you have is that inner child is so broken and not like, then you're going to keep playing that stuff out basically on other people. Is that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's
Oof.
and that's the and that's the way it shows up, right? Like the
Yeah.
unhealed part of us is always causing harm.
Mm,
Our inability
yeah.
to solve problems together, our inability to forgive, the inability to be vulnerable, even with those we say that we love. When I
Mm.
think about some of the conversations I have with men about being fathers, and they talk about never being hugged by their dad,
Oh.
never hearing
Yeah.
"I love you" from their
Hmm.
father or "I'm proud of you," and just how those simple words can change a child's outcome.
Yeah.
That's where it really pains us at, because it starts to hurt other people. And there's so many people who have parental wounds, an emotionally unavailable mother who
Mm.
never was loved on or nurtured herself. And so she doesn't know how to be that for her children. And then
Yeah.
the cycle just goes on and on. And so until people are courageous enough to say, I'm going to break the cycle, we just kind of get caught in that childhood version of ourselves that's expressed in an adult body. And so it causes so much harm,
Mm.
to not work on your own healing. And I don't think anybody gets to like a finality of healed, right? Like, you know,
Even
healing,
you?
healing. No, I'm still on my healing journey, right?
Of
Um,
course,
I'm
yeah.
probably far more advanced than than a lot of people with it, because I've had time to really focus intentionally on it.
Hmm.
But even things come up, and I'm like, oh, there's that thing. I just happen to
Mm.
have the tools to deal with it. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean that the thing doesn't come up. And I get a
Yeah.
chance to
Yeah.
choose whether to use the tools or not use them.
Yeah.
And that's
Eh,
what the book really offers, is these tools and this framework of, like, if you use the tools, you can definitely free yourself.
mm. You're so confident. It's so inspiring. And I mean, for me, right, there's so many habits, right? And it's not that the habits there's
Yeah.
deep grooves. But as I get older and wiser and do some of this work, I recognize it faster. I'm like, oh, there's that same old story that
Yeah.
I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
And then I have a bunch of strategies and I'm like, oh, okay, which one are we going to go to now? I want to pick up on something you just said. I've had the time. I think one of the trickiest parts of the world we live in, I know, I think I can speak for everyone listening. They don't feel that they have the time. Right. And obviously and I think even we know consciously that, like, this is the best time well spent. And of course I should take the time. But even you've said, look, even I, who know better, so to speak, right? What do you say to that? I mean, obviously, like, there are some practical strategies in there, but, like, how do you do it? And what do you recommend?
That's a great question, a great call out. I say this is the intention dictates the time. The intention dictates the time. And what I mean by that is,
Mm,
if you are intentional about the experience you want to have, you will make the time,
mm,
and you will make that 5 minutes that it takes to journal, to do that
mm,
breath work, to meditate, to reflect on a passage that lifts you up.
mm,
It doesn't require as much time as people probably assume in their mind.
hmm.
It's the
That's good
intention of
news.
the time, right? And
Hmm.
so what I did in prison, where when I began to shift, I put the time into the things I was intentional about.
Hmm.
I made sure that I was journaling. Sometimes it was for 2 minutes. Sometimes it could be for an hour. But
Hmm.
the intention was always the same. I have to write to free myself from this old narrative. And that just required me saying, hey, I don't want to suffer anymore. And I am tired of suffering. Therefore, I'm going to do what is necessary for me to heal, no matter how long it takes me. And in some areas, I was able to heal instantaneously. In other areas, it required deeper work. And
Wow.
so the intention dictates the time. And once people really understand that, they'll make the time. You know,
Mm.
you just got to be committed to it. You have to have the desire, like the desire to live a life free of suffering. It's a courageous act to, to
Yeah.
say, I'm going to set out on this journey where I'm going to stop rewarding my suffering with more suffering.
Mm.
That I'm going to, challenge the moments that I'm suffering and figure out what can I intentionally do to change that. And so now I don't, there's things that come up and I'm like, oh, if I go down this path, I'm going to suffer, And so I am choosing all the time, and it doesn't mean
Mm.
I get it right all the time. Like I'm no different than any other human. Um, but the awareness gives me just a big of a kind of leg up on the old version of myself,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
I want people to get to. And that's why I say, even if you look at the interior design of the book, there's a doorway uh
Mm.
where on the dig deeper part, right? And
Mm.
the
Yeah.
intention behind that was that none of us are without the potential of sliding back into an old way of being.
No, in fact, it's the deep grooves make it very easy.
Exactly. And so that's why the door is there, is because sometimes you're gonna go in and out.
Ah. Huh.
But the thing is that you now have the power to decide,
Mm.
am I gonna go back into that old place that, is familiar,
Yeah.
and familiarity
Yeah.
is comfort.
You know what you're getting.
Sometimes your suffering can be comfortable. Um,
Yeah.
and so
This is
it's
very
like,
Buddhist of you.
yeah,
This is right? It's
yeah. It's like, so yeah, so we get a chance to, like, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to have a miserable day. So I just try to set my intentions on, like, how do I want to experience it in,
yeah.
in that
And when it's like
space.
what you said at the beginning, if nobody, we don't actually say out loud, I want to have a great connection with my friend right now. How should I go about that? But
Yeah.
after the fact, we're like, oh my God, that was the best. And
Right.
it's, would you say it's the same here? It's like, I don't want to suffer. We don't say, I don't want to suffer anymore. Therefore, I'm going to do things that will ensure that I no longer suffer.
Yeah.
But afterwards, we're like, dang, that feels so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe to ask you about the literary lounge.
The
Yeah.
building is one, just the building itself is
It's
one of the
beautiful.
most beautiful buildings in America. I
I
promise you.
I didn't know anything about the Central Market until
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the building's an old train station that
Huh.
had been out of business since like the 80s. And it was this monumental, just massive eyesore. And Ford
Really?
invested 700 million into rehabbing this building.
Wow.
Um, and people thought it would take them 20, 30 years to turn this thing around. And they did
Yeah.
it in probably about 6 years.
Wow.
It is one of the most majestic buildings in the country.
Wow.
It sits in its own world, basically. And when you walk into the building, it's just like these massive ceilings and this beautiful marble. And then they actually kept some of the graffiti from when it was just
Huh.
in disarray, which is actually now looks really cool. And then the Boys and Girls Club sits on the fifth floor inside this building.
Yes.
And so these
Yes.
kids are
Awesome.
walking into a space
Oh,
that looks nothing like any other Boys and Girls Club in the world. Like it is just a beautiful, beautiful building. And then
wow.
you go in and you just go up to this floor that takes up a whole floor, and it's just like, I mean, the technology in these spaces. There's Usher, the singer, has the Spark Lab, and it's like all this
No way. I
technology. The
didn't know
rapper
that.
Big Sean has like a music studio in there, and just it's like they're doing fashion and robotics, and I mean, it's just an unbelievable place. And then you got the Shaka Senghor Lounge, which is like this massive anchor at the end of the building where
Huh.
kids can just come and be, and they're able to just spend real time. And and they took the coolest part is the designers took some of my writing from prison. So on the walls there's writing from my journals as well as from like my first piece of fiction that's literally on the wall, and it's
Oh,
my
wow.
handwriting and it's written on.
In your handwriting.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
and it's my
so
real.
cool.
Yeah, they. I don't know how they did this. Is incredible, but it's like Michigan Department of Corrections correspondence paper, and so you see this. These kids get a chance to look like, I'm not just telling you a story that I didn't live, but you have
That's
evidence when
right.
you walk into the space. But it's like so beautifully designed, and it's
Oh, I would
incredible.
love
It's
that.
it's literally like
Yeah.
I'm like it's the most surreal. Just to have something named after you in a public space is
Is
crazy, right?
kind of crazy enough.
And
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
think
While
about
you're
like,
alive.
yeah, when you see this building that's like
Ah,
unbelievable, and when they opened it back up, I mean, it was just a massive concert. They had like Eminem and White Stripes and everybody you can think of. Like it's that big of a deal.
wow.
But it's still surreal to think that these kids are just going into this building every day and changing their lives one book at a time.
And one book at a time and a space to just read. I mean, as a book nerd, oh,
Yeah,
right? To be able to, so, and the writing on the wall, I saw that piece too, but I didn't realize it was on Department of Corrections note paper and
yeah,
in your handwriting to see. I mean, I think that's because it's easy to love books and you're like, oh, look at this
yeah,
bound book that's
yeah,
perfect and everything, and that's something different. But to look at your handwriting
yeah,
and to be like, oh, and that's your main, that's your main suggestion is that we all just need to write.
yeah, yeah,
I bet, I mean, I'm sure you've already had kids, but I can't wait for all the kids who come in there and are our future poet laureates
yeah,
and philosophers
yeah,
and, because they were inspired. They're like, oh,
yeah,
okay, I guess
yeah.
that's how books are written.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm excited about is like really building out programming. So
Yeah.
I'm literally about to go out to all of my friends and just be like, listen. So, Boys and Girls Club genuinely has their own operating budget. They have all those things, but I really want to carve out like some intentional scholarships for writers. Starting as an independent writer, I just think about, I didn't have a typewriter and all those things. I had to hustle up on those things
Yeah.
in prison. And so the scholarship that I'm putting together, the idea is that there'll be a pool of money specifically for the kids who come through there who want to be writers. And
Mm.
then we'll give them like these adventurous writing retreats. And
Ooh,
I'll come and, I'll instruct them on memoir writing and fiction and, nonfiction writing. But then I'll have my writer friends come who are screenwriters and
right.
who write for television and who write music. And then they also got to go on an actual adventure to get to the retreat. Because I don't want it to be bored. I want their minds to be fired up with like
Yeah.
imagination on their journey. So they may take a train, um,
Yeah.
or we may do it in some place that isn't a typical spot where people would think that a writer's retreat takes place. And
Yeah,
so
great
that's
idea.
a big
Or
thing
like a
about
spy
it.
novel
Yeah,
opening to the
yeah,
writer's retreat,
yeah,
and sneak in some, yeah, journaling and meditation and the thing,
absolutely.
like the
Yeah,
work of the inner life. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, okay, the last thing I have to ask you is I encourage everyone to read the dedication of this book.
Mm,
That is a bit surprising.
yeah,
And then you say, look, of course, there's a million people I could dedicate this book to, and I love them all, but this one is for me.
yeah,
And then you tell us to the little boy they call Pumpkin,
yeah.
to the broken teenager the streets renamed Jay, to the young man James White who walked into a prison cell at 19, and to the man Shaka Senghor who has carried them all into the light.
Mm. Yeah, this one was for me. Um, it's so wild because I was like, it was one of those moments where, I've had these moments in my life where I know that there was a higher energetic force, right? God, creator, universe, whatever people choose to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that led me to that dedication. And it came so organically, so
Hmm.
pure, so
Hmm.
beautiful. And I didn't resist it. There was a moment where I hesitated because I'm like, oh, I got a wife and I got a kid. And I'm like, could dedicate it to them. That's the noble thing to do. And my spirit was like, no, you need to do this. You've been
Mm,
through a lot of iterations of the self, and this version of you Liddy deserves to dedicate this body of work, which is, I believe, is my most important body of work. Um,
wow.
and yeah, it just came like Liddy through this energy that was like, okay, that's what it is. And I just
Wow.
wrote it, and I just didn't even second guess it. I just let it
Right.
be.
Didn't edit it.
Yeah.
Where were you sitting when that happened? Like, describe the scene.
Yeah, I was actually sitting in my office where I'm at now. I'm outside. I live in
Okay.
LA now. So this is my outside office slash hangout space slash gathering space, and I was literally just
It's
like,
midwinter, but those
yeah,
of us in California get to enjoy. It's
yeah.
gorgeous
And
today.
it's one
Yeah.
of those moments where I'm like, I was going through the list of things that my publisher was like, okay, we need this by such and such date. And I was like, oh, the dedication, And
Mm,
instantaneously, I was like, my wife and my son, and I was like, that spirit just hit me. It was like, no, this one is for you, you know. And so I just trusted it.
wow.
And it's so
I
interesting because I can tell you in my other two books, no one's ever asked me about the dedication. But with this one, so many people have remarked about how profoundly impacted they were by that particular dedication. And that was just
Mm.
striking to me because I'm like, do people even read dedication? I didn't even know. Because nobody's ever
I
been
do.
like, who did you dedicate? Honestly, nobody's ever said anything about the other two. Yeah,
But this one is for me, as you say. But this book is for all of us,
absolutely.
and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you spent the time to sit down and talk about it with me today.
Yeah,
Um, Thank you, Shaka.
yeah. No, it's truly been an honor, and I'm happy we get a chance to do this. And I'm sure it won't be our last
Yeah.
conversation. So,
I hope not. I
yeah, it's
hope
great.
not.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a joy.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps other listeners discover the show. You can find People in Common on all major podcast platforms, and we'd love to hear from you on social media. Until next time, take care.